So it's looking at language development in typically developing children. And what you're doing is you're assessing your student and you're comparing them to a typically developing child. And your job, what you're trying to do is catch your student up to typically developing children. So it's amazing. You're looking at the functional use of language, but there comes a point where for some individuals, you may not be able to catch them up. And at that point, it's like, why are we comparing them to their typically developing peers? Why are we working on things in a developmental sequence when there are important things they need to work on? So at that point, we need to switch over to a function-based assessment, which is what Essential for Living is. What's amazing about Essential for Living, and it's the only function-based assessment that does this, is it's not a checklist, and it continues to focus on communication. It uses Skinner's analysis of verbal behavior, and it tracks. It's pretty overwhelming when people open the assessment and curriculum, they feel a little overwhelmed because it does track, right? Do you have it?
I opened it up.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I screamed, I put it away, and didn't open it again for 3 more years until I went to one of Pat's workshops. And it's actually remarkably simple. So,
right.
Yeah.
It feels very overwhelming to look at it, but it's so important for the kids and the young adults that you're going to use this assessment and curriculum with. You can't do a lot of times, you can't do like a yes, no, cold probe. You're not seeing any progress. With Essential for Living, you're tracking small increments of progress. So you're seeing that progress over time. And I just feel that our clients deserve that kind of thorough detail. But yes, it's overwhelming. I don't know whether I can say on YouTube. Yeah, I can say anything actually on YouTube.
You can say anything you want. It's fine. It's the pandemic. It's fine.
I was going to say that there's Pat. Anybody who knows Pat, he is so down to earth. He's awesome. And he does describe that moment that people open the book as an oh shit moment. That's his words, not mine. And people put it away like Ted did for 3 years and get overwhelmed. What we're hoping with the app is that it walks you through the process a little bit, takes a little bit of time away. So that's our goal with everything we create. We really want to help teachers, help practitioners, because we're busy and we need quick results, and we can't be coloring in squares and things like that. So that's our goal.
So one of the things that I really kind of bumped on with what you said was, BBMAP gets to this point where it's not really appropriate, or you're really kind of spinning your wheels with it sometimes. And I think some of the pushback we get in the schools is if we're working with that secondary student, so maybe like a 13 to 16-year-old student that's still developmentally showing, level 2, level 3 in BBMAP, where are we actually going with that? So I'm really intrigued to have an assessment that is suited for them in the schools. So
right. And Pat makes a really good point. I mean, everything that comes out of my mouth, I've heard from great people. So it's not me. I'm just repeating what Pat says, which is amazing. And with BBMAP, you are looking at feature, function, and class, which is great when you're assessing kids and you're wanting to catch kids up to their typically developing peers. They need to know that information. But when they're not catching up, nobody comes up to you in the street and says, "Tell me something you wear." They just don't. They might say, right, tell me a vehicle. I mean, you just, or is this a cup? Nobody does that. You do need to know when to wear a coat. You do need to know how to wash a coat, how to put on a coat. But nobody's going to say, what do you wear? And there comes a point where let's teach these guys what they need, because time is running out. I guess I can say personally with Sarah, she's 24. She graduated high school with her peers. She was in learning support, and truthful, and I'm in the field, and I admit we wasted time. She could tell you all the presidents. She can tell you the periodic table. She can do algebra. But when it came to accepting no, waiting, listening to others, lending, she had problem behavior. And that behavior is not going to get her a job or allow her to lead a happy, productive life. So we turned to EFL. We definitely, with EFL, worked on that tolerating piece that he has. And she's doing great. She had a little volunteer position at the local orthodontist. She did until this craziness. But
then COVID.
Right, exactly. It comes up, right? So it was amazing for her, and you know, we've lived it, and we continue to live it. But the things that it works on focuses on those really important pieces that young adults need. So, and actually, if you guys read, you showed the handbook there, Ted.
Yes.
If you read the chapter about when to use BBMAP and EFL, Pat's going to look so nicely modeled.
And
Pat's going to.
We can screenshot that for you, and you know, it could be an advertising tool.
It's lovely.
I can just see Ted's billboard posted up.
Right, on buses and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's
EFL, getting you where you need to be.
Exactly. Give us 2 weeks and we'll give you a curriculum for a lifetime. So, but there's a piece in there where you talk about BBMAP, where Pat talks about BBMAP, when to use it, when to use EFL. I would definitely recommend reading that. And one thing that Pat is going to make sure he says with the next release is that it was written in conjunction with Mark Zumberg. So they agree on when to use each assessment and curriculum, and they go nicely together. There's a time and a place for each one.
Well, I just really like what you said about, you know, the practicality of BBMAP. And of course, I mean, a majority of the students that we work with are kind of in that very verbal operant beginning stage. We work with a lot of pre-K through third grade.
Right.
But there is a functional reality to it. Like you said, nobody comes up and says, hey, is this a cup, you know, in everyday life. And I think that's something that we miss in the schools, and in the, you know, how we do public education for special education.
Well, and especially especially in the upper grades, you know, we're still seeing, I mean, we're still seeing, you know, kids cutting shapes and sorting colors. And it's like, come on, like, let's move past this. Like, they've been doing this since pre-K.
Right.
Let's elevate it. How is sorting functional in their day-to-day life? Like, so like you said, to live a happy, productive life. What is the use of cutting? Like we don't need to cut hearts or squares. Like, why are we actually going to use scissors? Let's
Exactly. Exactly. And I really, we've done a couple of trainings on conducting the VB-MAP and teaching after the VB-MAP. And one thing I like to say to people is I thank everybody that I've learned from. But one person I thank, even with the VB-MAP training, is Pat McGreevy, because he really taught me, you know, and continues to teach me when to say, you know what, it's time to move on. It's great. It's a great assessment, and so amazing for certain students, but there's a time to be focusing on happy, productive, what do they need right now?
Yeah. And you come at this from a very interesting perspective as a parent too. I think that you kind of have, you know, a lens on both sides of this. That one of the things that I find that parents kind of like about BBMAP is it gives a normalization. Like okay, I'm going to hit this developmental milestone. And while that may be comforting for the parent, sometimes it's not always necessarily the best trajectory for the child. So,
well, and what I've experienced is that there are some learners who, if I spend 9 months, 10 months, maybe I can make it up to MAND level, MAND number 4, 4M. But in that same 9 months of them being miserable with failure after failure after failure, and all the behavior problems that come with that, and the lack of reinforcement and everything, in that same 9 months, I could accomplish so much more that lets them access so much more reinforcement, make life so much more fun and interesting and successful, and thereby alleviates some of those behavioral difficulties. And you have to wonder, is it really worth it to move them up this much in their manding when at the same time I could do all this while I'm still maybe in the background working on the manding?
Right. And for some kiddos, I mean, definitely where BBMAP is appropriate, you just see such growth, and it is good to have that comparison. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard Mark talk about his new part of the BBMAP with the generalized learning. I mean, it's kind of neat stuff he's doing, and I think it's going to really add to that assessment, and it's going to remind people kind of not to race up the map and to really expand and get that novel responding and generalization. And so it is really great where it's appropriate, but you're right, there is a point where you need to move on, for sure.
Well, I think it's such a timely discussion too. I mean, because as we kind of look at what returning to the schools looks like for some of our most challenged learners. I had a meeting yesterday with one school division, and they're bringing kids back into the classroom, and they were asking me, well, how are we going to maintain social distancing and things? And I think, the conversation that comes up is, well, these are things we probably should have been working on anyway prior to COVID. Right. This just gives us a better rationale for it. Because one of the things you certainly see when you go into like a self-contained classroom or a classroom with learners with disability is allowing learners to kind of encroach on proximity of personal space. Whether it's that child sitting on the instructional assistant's lap or always sitting knee to knee and kind of that learned helplessness like Cooper, or even staff kind of violating the proximity of the student. Like it's not uncommon for a teacher just kind of to reach into a child's space. So I think this is a really timely conversation. Yeah, exactly. And I'm really intrigued. Ted brought up EFL like I said, a couple of weeks ago to me. And it definitely seems to be a missing piece, Kate, of what we're looking for and kind of how we support the schools.
Well, and that's something, I mean, that's something huge that we talk about constantly when we go into these classrooms, especially when the students are in pre-K and kindergarten and they're small, period. And so it's easier just to have them sit on your lap, and it's like, but that's not appropriate. Like it's, I mean, I just think of when we had gone into the schools over the summer and I saw a student messing with one of the teacher shields, and they started to give attention to the behavior by saying, no, don't touch my face mask, no. So then the kid keeps touching it, and they're like, no, and giving them access, and it's giving them access because proximity wise they're right there. And I just said, just move back. And as soon as the teacher moved back, the kid went back to their seats, their hands were safe, and I said, okay, now you may come back. But it's like, we need to be demonstrating this appropriate behavior. Yeah.
Right.
And it seems like EFL is going to like kind of promote that very naturalistic setting and application of instruction.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing, and I can show you guys as well, when you're taking data, that small increments of progress, there is that generalization piece across two people, across two settings. There's one piece that I'm sure our development team is like shuddering about this, but that's okay. They'll move on. Pat just the other day talked about the fact that he regrets not having like a natural environment piece in there. You know, like, do you just see it occur? So he's saying he wants to put that in with the next edition. I'm like, oh no, the development team are gonna have a tough time with that, but that's okay. It's important. But he does talk about teaching in the environment where that skill is going to be used, for sure.
Right. And one of the interesting things that we've been seeing as we've done instruction virtually with some of the students that we work with, is we're seeing that home environment and how it kind of blends. Now all of a sudden they're having to generalize a skill that they were able maybe to do in the classroom, but now they're having to demonstrate it in an environment where, you know, instructional control, really, they have more instructional control than what the teacher does, because everything is so readily accessible to them, or that's where they go and watch TV, or that's where they go lay on the couch. So I think that generalization is such a huge part.
Can I ask a naive question with the develop, like, you know, that question of like, when is it not appropriate with the VB map? Does it have to be, it's not appropriate, like, you know, can we start to transition to the EFL like in elementary school? Is that too early? I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
No, actually, again, if you look at that handbook, and I could even share, I don't know whether you have things that you can share with your listeners, like if I send you something, compared with the handbook, I can send it to you. It's written up in the handbook, and I just made it into a chart, but such a good question.
Oh, wow.
There are times where both Pat and Mark would say that even if you have kids 2+ that have other syndromes, other disabilities, they are not going to catch up to their peers, which is fine. That's fine, but let's stop comparing them. They would both say, go EFL. And I think why EFL is great, again, is because there's a whole domain on manding. I mean, Pat doesn't call it manding, he calls it requesting, because he wants to get it out to group homes, and you know, not everybody knows what a mand is. So, but he has a whole domain on that. So it's not like you're not giving up that communication piece. It's a huge part of EFL. So yeah, it's really individualized. You need to look at that individual student. But and the other thing you could do is with certain students, like Chad, you said those students that are kind of stalling out in level 2, which I really think, I'm so excited for Mark with this generalized part of VB map, generalized language, because I think once people start focusing on that, maybe we won't have those kids stalling out in level 2. I don't know. But for those kids that are, then you could bring in EFL and VB map. Like, it's not that you have to do one or the other. You could just kind of start exploring EFL, like
see which one they gravitate towards. Like, this one's
right.
Really, cool.
And you know, there was something interesting that you said that with the parents as well. The other thing is, I think parents, I don't know, I'm speaking as a parent. I know that it was really hard, obviously it was hard for me because I didn't do it, to start thinking about functional skills for Sarah, because in a way, by saying that and focusing on that, I was kind of pushing away the dream of college, the dream of marriage, you know, so it's very traumatic, and I think it's up to us as professionals to understand that and baby steps with parents, and you know, maybe, hey, okay, and Pat talks about this a lot, you know, you want your child to work on colors or numbers or whatever, yeah, I'll do that, but let's also, what's important in the home, what are you having trouble with, let's maybe work on that, and then slowly, you know, morph over.
And no one's going to marry anyone who, well, some do, that's how I stay in business, who has tantrums over every little thing. who can't take no for an answer, all these other things that you learn on EFL. So yeah, I get it. I get it. And with teachers, with others, the feeling is that you're giving up.
Right.
And what you're actually doing is opening up whole bigger chunks of the world quicker to the person. And you can always either go back to or in concert with it, teach those other things.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's an important point that, we can cycle back around once we get some more functional skills. Now, I think you're right. I think it's such a hard conversation to have with parents. And to be quite frank, I mean, the school systems make it pretty challenging too, because they require these standards based, and I think if there is any, we specialize in going into public schools. That's really all we do. If there's any real big gap that definitely exists, it is in that very functional curriculum that students really need and could benefit from. What's your experience with EFL getting into the schools? Have you seen it?
Yeah, Pat talks about it a lot, and actually we've worked with them too, because they're piloting the app for us. Well, they were until craziness. Well, they probably still are, because they can, work with parents over Zoom and stuff. But Pat, they use EFL in District 75 in New York. I just bring that one up because apparently, I hope I'm getting this right. I apologize to any other large school districts, but apparently that's the largest school district in the state. I don't know. I think.
We're way down in Virginia. We don't know.
Right. I'm in the Poconos, so I don't know. But anyway, so a lot of schools are bringing it in. Pat on his website. So his website is essentialforliving.com. Be careful when you type it in. Well, nothing bad comes up, but you can go to essential oil.
I was just about to say, like, are we going to get oil? We're going to get some tea trees.
Something else. And I think the European Football League comes up if you go to EFL.com. So yeah, nothing bad comes up, but just essentialforliving.com. He has on his site, he's actually linked a lot of the domains and a lot of the skills to the Common Core.
Yes, I was just about to say, like, when you can, at least in the state of Virginia, the state did like an overlap. So it was like, they started with kindergarten and then they went through all the grades, and they started to show, and this is for the SOLs, like for just for a neurotypical child. And they showed just like the developmental milestones. And I was like, it would be so cool if we could take that and then embed functional skills in between, so that we're seeing that it's like, it's this whole, we talked about it months ago, it feels like, but this idea of academics first behavior. And it's like, no, it's all embedded. And so it's like, if we could be able to show this overlap of academics is embedded with functional behavior, with functional skills in the world. And it's like, sorry, I'm just getting giddy excited.
No,
it's all behavior.
Yes, it's all behavior.
It is all behavior.
But I just like see, I can see how, have you guys published that yet with the overlap with the Common Core and the EFL?
It is on his website. What's unfortunate about it, and this is where it's so, sorry, school districts or whoever makes this decision, it's so frustrating, like you said, that, so the functional skills, that part of EFL is actually not aligned to the Common Core, because it can't be. Like even what do they call it? The links, the
standard. Yeah.
Right.
Whatever.
So yeah, our kiddos, our clients should be working on those things, but because Pat has that communication piece in there, demanding, he also has functional academics in there, which are amazing. They give you so many good ideas of things to do for your students. He can align those to the Common Core. So those ones are aligned. The daily living skills are not, but at least he has something, to align it.
Yeah.
Does EFL have any social component to it? Does it have any type of curriculum for that? or
It
measures?
does. Yeah, there's a lot of with peers, you know, accepting no from peers, manding with peers, and Pat talks a lot about, like, I'd really recommend, he does like Troy and Pat, sorry, I should be saying Troy too, because he wrote it too, sorry, Troy. They do Q&A sessions. You can go on the website and you can just sign up for these Q&A 1 hour long sessions where you can ask questions, you can listen in. They're really, really good. And Pat talks a lot about, as soon as possible, when you can bring in a group or another peer, you should. I mean, problem behavior, severe problem behavior, obviously, you know, that's a different story. But if you can bring in, because where are our guys going? You know, when they get to the adult world, they're going to have to be with their peers. And he also talks about how it's an easier way to run weight and things like that, you know, because if you tell, if a student asks for something or a client asks for a cookie and you're just sitting there with them, you know, and you just say you have to wait, and you're just staring at them and they're staring at you, I mean, no wonder you might have problem behavior. Because it's like, why do I have to wait? You're just looking at me.
Well,
you know,
yeah,
I mean,
Have the cookie. Why are you making me wait?
Bring a book. Liz, we could talk about EFL all day, and I can't think of anything more enjoyable. But are you able to show it to us?
Yes, I was thinking
very
that.
cool.
Can you, I actually have both up. I have a VB Map app. And I also have EFL, but you're thinking EFL? I can.
Yeah, I'd like to see the EFL for sure. You should be able to share your screen with everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
This is exciting.
If we're not able to cover both of them in the next half hour, would you be willing to join us again? Because we are fun and charming.
We
are fun.
And
I have dogs.
I love it. And I got to see Cooper live, not just a picture of him. So yes,
Cooper has a cult following.
He should. He's adorable. Adorable. I have my beast. I thought I had my beast lying at my feet, but I don't know where he is. So let me do that. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
I can.
All right.
It says that we're paused. I hope we unpause.
Oh, okay. I hope I didn't do anything. We're good?
Oh, no, we're on pause now. So.
Okay.
No, we're paused.
Good. No, I would love to. And what we always say to people as well, if they want to play around with EFL, what we do is if people contact us, and you can contact me about EFL at liz@eflapp.com, we would give a free student license to people to play around with. We also do GoToMeetings with how to use it. And then again with VB Map, if you're interested in that, contact me at liz@VB Map app, and we can hook you up. So let me show you. So this is the website. You go to eflapp.com. Everybody needs to create a free account if they're going to use it, if you're going to share students with them, but that's really easy to do. Now, I just have a fake account, so all these learners are fake. So let me show you. So when you log in, when you initially start with a learner, you have some choices over to the left. You have, you do have the access to the handbook here. So if you want to have a little read at night, you can do that. I do personally prefer paper, and so I can mark it up, but I'm old school, so, you know, whatever floats your boat. So then when you get here, you can do a couple of different things. We really try not to pigeonhole our users into doing specific things. A quick assessment is often recommended because it will get you in the ballpark of the skills you might want to assess further with a learner. So you don't have to do that. As you get to know EFL, if you know the skills you want to work on, you could go straight to selecting a vocal profile and we can get to that in a minute. But if I go to quick assessment, this, if you've seen the paper version, it should be familiar. Let me try and make it a bit bigger without losing my choices. So here's the quick assessment, and it's looking at these different skill areas. The first two are related to how the client uses words. Are they able to speak as we do? And if they're not, do they have a successful alternative method of speaking? So he really focuses on communication and finding an alternative response form that is going to last a student's lifetime and is going to be, they're going to be successful with it. Then he has what he calls the essential aids. So these are skills that are absolutely must-have skills for a happy, productive life. You're not going to have problem behavior. So things like being able to make requests, waiting, accepting no, tolerating daily living skills related to health and safety. So really must have, down and dirty, like you really need to be able to do this. And then the rest are important skills, but not what they would call must-have skills. So he talks about skills in terms of must-have, should have, good to have, and nice to have. And it's weird when you look at them and you look through the skills, I'll show you them, it's amazing because you're like, yeah, you're right. That is a must-have skill. Yeah, you're right. You don't need that, but it's a good to have skill. So you would go
It's
through.
a great way to relate to the parents too, I think. Like
right.
Just putting things in perspective for them. So
right. I did, I was talking to a group of BCBAs once, and you know, we can be a little bit anal. And they were having a really hard time with this way he scores skills, you know, like, well, what does that mean? You know, how do we operationally define that? And I'm like, guys, just chill, you know, look at it. It really, you know, I think it's relatable to parents, group homes, you know, people who don't need that operationally defined stuff. So anyway, so you go through, you're going to score it. This is actually more of an interview that you do with someone who knows the client best. If you have a couple of people and they score differently, Pat and Troy would always say, err on the side of caution, score lower. So things like this. So making requests, you would have the question, do they have a tendency to make requests? Do they do it via problem behavior? Do they lead others to items? Or can they make requests for 1 to 3 preferred or 10 or more? So you're scoring the best, the best fit for your students. So I'm just gonna go through, I know in the interest of time, you'd go through and you'd score. You could stop here after the essential aid if you feel that your client really needs to work on these must-have skills, or you could move on and do the rest of the skills. And it's interesting, he does daily living skills related to health and safety. He breaks it down. So not only are you assessing the client's ability to do the daily living skill when they're in the context. So they're standing at the sink and the toothbrush and toothpaste are there, or the soap is there. Can they just wash their hands when their hands are dirty and they need to wash their hands? Can they also wash their hands when somebody says, go wash your hands? Two different skills, and he's assessing both of those. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, it was a long, I think he said 7 years it took them to work on this, and you can see why. So after you do the quick assessment, oh, one thing to know about the app as well is anytime you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do on this page? We have videos letting you know what to do on each page.
Very cool.
So
now you keep saying app. Does it also work on like an iPad as well as like working within a browser?
Yeah, you know what? I am so bad at using app that way. So actually the EFL app, right now it's just on the web and you do need Wi-Fi. We are coming out in a month or two. I keep saying this and I'm like, I hate to say a time frame, but it's really soon, where what we're going to have is a place where people can go to our website and they can access both EFL and BBMap. So if you have learners on BBMap, you can go to the same place. For that, it is going to be available in the iTunes, the App Store. You are going to still need Wi-Fi, but I mean, Wi-Fi is pretty, you know, it's around a lot, and you can also use it on your phone too. So if Wi-Fi is a problem, you could use it on your phone. So, you have the VB
one. Yeah.
The VB
yeah,
Map.
we actually just got the VB Map app for the company to start using this year. And if you ever need anybody to pilot, you know, your new app for Essentials for Living, EBCS will be happy to.
Sure, and you know, we do that a lot. It's really important to us that people use it, need it, see the need for it, enjoy our products. So we're very easy to say, hey, you know, try it out. Get with us, pilot it, because we prefer you use it and get used to it. And then in our mind, you'll come back and purchase it if you're happy. So absolutely, reach out and set up a pilot. We'd love it. And then we'd love your feedback too. So once you've done the quick assessment, depending what you put for your first two answers, if you say that your student doesn't have an effective response form, isn't using spoken words, when you click next, it's going to ask you to select a vocal profile. It will tell you based on your input what vocal profile the learner seems to be exhibiting. You can look at all the vocal profiles and change that choice if you want.
Oh, wow.
I'll stick with vocal profile 6. And this is all from the handbook, all this information. You go next, and then if anybody has used the paper version, this replaces the overlay. So Pat has an overlay where you color in your students' repertoires and you put it over. He has 46 alternative methods of speaking, which blows my mind. And what you do is you're finding the best method of speaking that suits your learner. He also on his website, if you have the paper version, you can go to his website and he has something very similar on his website that lists the most appropriate AMSs for your learner. So the way it works is you start selecting your students' repertoires. With the app, it won't allow you to select hearing impaired and hearing. So it has some, you know.
Oh, one or the other. Yeah.
It won't let you do that. So I'm selecting the repertoires. And I actually had a long conversation with Pat the other day, and it's pretty amazing and makes a lot of sense. So it starts generating these alternative methods of speaking. And it's pretty amazing the order that it gets generated in. So you ready for this? So the order is, first of all, it looks at the repertoires and it the most matches for your repertoire will get listed first. If that is a tie, then it looks at the advantages of speech that each of these AMSs produces or allows you to have. So it will list the ones with the most advantages first. If you get to a tie, then it will look at whether you have the ability to engage a large audience. Yeses get listed first, then nos. And then after that, AMSs are listed in terms of the number. So a lower number will get listed before a higher number. So it's really like super intense and makes a lot of sense. So what somebody would do here, what the team could do is once the AMSs are populated, you can click on the AMS, the alternative method of speaking, you can read about it, you can see the advantages that it would offer you. And as a team, you can go through and you can discuss what might be best to trial with your learner. Hi, Cooper. And then you would choose AMS 3, let's say. So we've done that. And in the future, I think we want to add something to the app where it will circle back around and kind of remind you, have you run this many man trials today? You know, is this successful? Do you need to redo? You know, just to keep prompting people. Your goal is to find something that the student's going to use, you know, and use for their lifetime. So once you do that, then it's going to take you to a skill deficits page, which basically is showing you all the skills in EFL. So this is the page where you can look up here. You'll see the must-have skills, should-have skills, good to have, nice to have, by the domains. So by the domain, the requesting domain, the listener responding, and daily living skills. And here what you can do is you can actually click on a skill and you can read about it. So that doesn't actually have so much information. Let me go to this one. And you can see it's taken from the handbook, all the information on the skill. It has the red lettering, which is in behavioral terms. And then it has the blue, which is in more layman's terms, which I love.
That's a nice feature, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I really like it. I mean, he's making it accessible to everybody, as long as people can get over the initial, you know, shock of the symbols and the data collection. If you can just work through it, it's amazing. It really gives you great information. So here, what's going to happen is it's just identifying different skills based on what you put in the quick assessment. That doesn't mean you need to assess all of them. You shouldn't assess all of them. What you're going to do is you're going to look down and you're going to choose, I think, Pat, it depends. I mean, 5 to 7, maybe a few more that are the most important to the learner at this time. If you have a skill that has not been identified by the quick assessment, you can manually identify it yourself. So once you kind of look at this, figure out the skills, and you can see, actually, we should talk about the skills. So, I mean, there are things in there that just are so important that I wouldn't have even thought of. You know, requesting the communication board or book, request help in a threatening or dangerous situation, politely refuses access, and then really simple responding as a listener directions. You know, will you come here? Will you stop? Will you respond to your name? Will you fasten your seatbelt and remain in it when you're directed? I mean, some real
I guess we should
down and dirty, important things, right, Kate?
Mask, washing your hands, hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Right, wearing your mask. I don't think that's in there actually. Maybe it will be the next edition.
Yeah, for
the next edition.
pandemic.
Yeah. The COVID edition.
The COVID edition. Oh my gosh! Please, I hope. Please, I hope not. So then,
well, it is funny. It introduces a whole nother set of skills that, are, there's a whole new reality to this. And,
right.
I think this group of learners that this applies to really, stands out as the potential for being the most disenfranchised group of learners with, what's happening with virtual instruction. And we're certainly trying to find ways to accommodate that and help school divisions overcome it. But
I even think of
looking at learning outcomes.
Well, I think of, so when you, on the last page, it was like, politely declining. Like, when you walk into a store and they're just like handing out hand sanitizer and you're like, I literally just washed, like, I haven't touched anything. Like, I mean, it would be appropriate for us to be able to say, no, thank you, I'm good. Or, instead of just walking by, which then that seems to like start something like, you need to take this. And it's like, if you just say no, thank you, which was one of those things like the must-haves, like that's a skill to teach. That's a skill to have. Like, I think a lot of the COVID stuff is kind of already in here, just not listed COVID.
Yeah, I do. I think you're right. I think you can find a lot of things that are so appropriate to, and were appropriate before, but now have come more to the forefront.
I agree. This
but,
is cool. Yeah. I'm sorry, Liz. I was intrigued by some of the stuff that just kind of aligns with my thinking and our thinking. And one of the questions I saw on there, I don't know if it was actually in the skills deficit or not, or maybe just an explanation, was what are you going to do next? And for so many of these learners, that's not an actual choice they have an answer to, right? It's already predetermined for them what they're going to do next. So it really speaks to the need to kind of design instruction that allows more of a free opportunity for some choice instead of always programming what those answers are so that they can generalize them out. And so I'm really intrigued by this.
Because they should. That's the important thing. We need to teach these growing adults that you have choice, and we need to show you how, it may be uncomfortable and weird. I mean, I sometimes have difficulty making decisions, but it's necessary. So it's necessary for them as adults to make decisions as well. And
and I just heard Pat talk about teaching yes, no, and it again blew my mind. Again, if you have a chance to take any of his online classes about EFL or even hop in for the Q&A, I mean, you learn like these little gems. We call them Pat gems. With teaching yes, no, he's like, you know what? He focuses on no. He's like, yes is, and it makes sense. Yes could reduce communication. So if you manned with yes, no, you don't really need yes. You could ask for the item itself. And sometimes by teaching yes as a man, if you do it too soon, you're going to reduce that ability to ask for lots and lots of things. And he's like, what's the most important thing for our guys, speaking of choice and safety? It's important that they can say no. I'm like, wow. It's actually
the most simple self-advocacy, really.
Right. And speaking of Pat Gems, pretty soon, we're very excited. He is making little videos for us for this type of thing. Like with the protocols that he has in EFL, he's going to make videos of, things to remember when you're using this protocol, things that mistakes he's made in the past. I think it's going to be really helpful.
You should have like a little EFL Instagram and just have like a Pat gem a week where it just pops up on a video.
Liz,
we can share them on our social media page.
That would be awesome though, like a 30-second, like just
Facebook page. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I went dark and quiet for a while. I was letting the dogs out, and I'm still standing in my basement, so I'm still dark. But Liz, if I'm not mistaken, there are also there are recordings in the VB map, correct? The kind of how to do various parts in the VB map app, which maybe we get to see during another session.
So actually, Ted, it's funny that you brought that up because Liz, like seeing seeing your face and then hearing your voice, I was like, I feel like I've seen her face and heard her voice before. And I popped onto my VB Math account that I bought, I think in November. And I was like, oh, that's Liz. I was like,
I know.
that's Liz, different haircut, same lady. I love it.
Oh, COVID hair. That's what's going on here. I have to apologize for COVID hair. I have not made it to the hairdressers.
Oh,
actually, I had the same problem. It's fine.
No, I just
what are you gonna do?
I think what I'm so really excited about EFL, and I know Chad, like we've talked a lot about VB Map with teachers in general, but it's Ted, like what you said, you know, something about where parents see this as like kind of what did you say? Parents seeing this as like a step down or something. Right, this just seems to be such like a step up. You know what I mean? Like I'm just it seems so exciting.
Yeah.
I know. And when you live it, so you know, when I see that, and we have work to do, we're still working on accepting no and waiting. I mean, they're hard things to do. But when you see that progress, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, if she couldn't answer, you know, intraverbal questions, you know, about what do you wear, who cares? You know, she can, when I tell her, no, not now, she's fine with it. And
this
you know, that's a happier life.
Well, and ABA, you know, has that stigma of being very clinical, you know what I mean? And this takes it, this shows the application of ABA. And it's not just,
it feels more natural.
It's not in a room. It's not like question ask, like, what's this, touch this, do that. Like, no, it is you're a person. We have needs, we have wants. There are things we need to do to be functioning people in society. This is how we're going to help. I'm so pumped about this right now. Like, I just want to go back.
I actually think it's a student Tate that we need to like go ahead and start running this on. But Liz, I had a question. I know we're running out of time. You had to get somewhere right at 10:30, I think.
Actually, I'm okay. That got canceled. So you know, so no stress. I know you probably have to head off, but yes, I'm good.
I had a question about, you know, one of the things that we really try to promote as we try to bring applied behavior analysis into schools is working within that collaborative kind of multidisciplinary model. There's a lot in here that I could see speech pathologists and maybe even OTs possibly pushing back a little bit with. What's your experience in kind of getting a good collaborative approach using EFL?
You know what, that is probably more of a Pat question if he's had any issues. It's interesting. I don't know whether you guys experience this, I tend to find more issues with VB Map, which is interesting, or maybe I've just been in team setting and been doing VB Map more because it's been around more. I think, you know, I think SLPs are very practical in what they're working on. Pat does talk about sometimes the mean length of utterance is not going to be in here, because it's not functional, it's not needed. But yeah, I think we should all hop on and chat to Pat about that question in a Q&A. I think we should do that.
Or we could get Pat to come on here. That would be great.
Well,
if you can pull that one off.
Yeah, I'll invite him.
He's great. Yeah,
that would be a lot of fun. No, I just look at like the select the vocal profile. I found that to be an interesting concept because we have one of the most amazing speech pathologists that work for our company. She's going to be soon a BSBA as well, which is super cool, and she'll have more letters than me. Yeah. But one of the things that we encounter a lot is that alternative method of speaking. You know, we've done a couple presentations on augmentative communication and kind of it suppressing progress a little bit sometimes. And I was just curious because I think, especially in the public schools, anything that's done has to be done in a way that everybody's going to buy in. And
Yes.
I just see so much potential for this. And you know what's interesting about it, and Kate, I don't know about you, but I haven't encountered this in the public schools yet. So Ted, have you actually seen it used in Virginia?
I haven't. I know Pat's been working with a couple school systems. I would love for our company. Yeah. Well, sort of. I don't know. I've asked people in Fairfax and they haven't heard. So maybe it's very carefully in a few areas, not widespread. But you know, I think in some of the school divisions where we work, this would be absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic, and for me, this has been like a 1 hour sales pitch. So like I'm bought in.
It wasn't supposed to be.
No. I mean, this am completely. This represents such a void, really, in what we've been doing. And you know, when you work with public school systems, they look for boxes. They want to see something packaged in a box that can be implemented because there is the appearance that, okay, this is, you know, one size fits all thing. And I think this kind of it walks both lines. You can have that conversation with administration about how this is a box, you know, you're buying this, but then in application, it really can be, you know, branched off into individual users. And to me, the thing that's the most intriguing about it, and I think to y'all's credit, is it gives prompts to talk to parents. Like, it gives ways to communicate effectively and really break down skills to parents. And I think that's one of the things that the school systems struggle with the most. And whenever, you know, parents are looking for private day placements and things, I think that's something that the private days do better than public schools do, is they look at things at a little more practical level. This gives a good framework for schools. So I can tell you that we're going to be using this.
Liz, do you mind doing a quick assessment to look at the top 8 skills?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really quick, because I have this idea in my head. So this is the thing. So my background is in general education, special ed. And so I got more into the self-contained world, working with students with high functioning autism that they weren't successful in a general education classroom just yet. So they were put in a self-contained classroom, and I've actually seen this throughout the state when we've been branching out. And I think it's like, you know, academically, they could be on level with neurotypical peers, but those essential 8 skills aren't there. And I'm just kind of thinking it'd actually be cool, because I know you guys are saying, you know, they're just not catching up. And it's like, this is a population of students, like they can be caught up academically, but it's these 8 skills that are needed. And it's like, you know, I think of the framework of their classroom, it's like, we're going to supplement things from the gen ed population academically, but these 8 our framework of our classroom are these 8 skills. We're going to focus on making those requests, the waiting time, the accepting those. Like, I don't know. I think it can go beyond.
8 specialized in the kids that didn't accept now.
And they had to accept it.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, we're living proof of that in the sense that Sarah was able to stay with her class. She, you know, algebra, she did teach her peers math. Like if they were struggling with algebra, she knew how to do it. But these skills, some of them, she had difficulty with, and she wasn't going anywhere unless she got these under her belt.
So I think that this, like, I don't know, Chad, I'm itching to get back into classrooms because I just want to be like, there could be a framework. You know what? Maybe the VB map isn't appropriate because we have those skills. It's this that we need to focus on. Let's focus on this.
Right. And you know,
I have to hop off. Liz mentioned under belt. I actually need to put on some pants. I have to be in my Fairfax and respite in an hour. So Liz, thank you so much.
Yes. I would love to do this again.
Tonight. And Kate, good to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye. I know. I need to let you guys go. He's so funny.
Yeah. He's amazing. So we did during the whole COVID shutdown, we did all these trainings. We did a webinar library of 50 webinars, and Ted just kind of got this cult following with Cooper, to where people were actually like making posts about Ted and Cooper on Facebook. And it was really funny.
You know what I should have brought out? I should have done this. We actually have cardboard Pat, and I should have had cardboard Pat behind me. We do not have cardboard Mark, but we have cardboard Pat. So he's got a bit of a following, cardboard Pat.
So my realization of like just how, you know, Ted's like one of the most modest people I've ever met in the world. And we were actually in Bulgaria for a conference, and we were driving to Greece to go, like we had a couple days to kind of kill. And Ted and I got into a discussion that was kind of a disagreement. And he's like, well, I'm just going to text Mark and ask him. And I was like, Mark? And he's like, yeah, Mark Sundberg. I said, you're not texting Mark Sundberg. And he's like, the heck I'm not. So I was like, yeah, okay, Ted knows some people.
Ted does know some people. And
as it turns out, we were both a little bit right.
So, well, that's good. That's good. But yeah, we are super passionate about the VB-MAPP too, and it's made huge differences in students, and it's an amazing assessment, and it makes people, you know, look at that functional use of language. And, you know, for Sarah, when I look back, we didn't do the VB-MAPP with her because, you know, it wasn't around at the time. But when I think about her early development, we were working on TAC. She could label like the entire language builder box, but when she wanted something, she had problem behavior. And the VB-MAPP is just so amazing at breaking this down and focusing on deficits and using strengths to teach deficits. So, I mean, not to, you know, take away from that assessment at all.
Yeah.
But
I think they serve two purposes, right?
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've always looked at the VB-MAPP as acquisition of vocabulary. I mean, really, you've got this deficit and delay when we start talking about the tact and things. And also just kind of evaluating those listener responses and the motor imitation stuff. I've always found that to be very beneficial. But then the actual application of it, I think they serve each other very well. And that, you know, VB-MAPP, you're going to walk away with pouring the foundation, and then this is how we're going to build the house on the essentials for living. And they marry each other really nicely. So
they do. They don't compete at all, and you can do both. You know, if you're not sure where you're going, you can do both. So
yeah, Liz, I put my email in the chat. So if you wouldn't mind sending that chart that you talked about, I would love it. And if anyone out there is like, hey, can you share that chart with us? We'd be happy.
Yeah.
Is that copyrighted, or can we share that on? Could we share that on a Facebook post, or is that copyrighted material?
Oh, I'm so bad at things like this. Well, let's think about it.
I just don't need Mark or Pat suing me.
No, that wouldn't be good. And we are very protective of their work, because they spent a long time working on this, and they deserve to, you know, have the credit for it. What it is it's a table that takes the information, a small part of information from the handbook. I'm pretty sure, I'm sure it can be shared, because basically what it's doing is it's allowing people to choose the correct assessment and curriculum for their client. Yeah, there you go. Let's do that.
And I'll make sure Ted make sure our citations are correct. And
oh gosh, yeah. Wow, that brings back memory. Citations.
APA form.
Oh, that made me shiver.
Well, so this has been fantastic.
Oh, thanks. And I didn't get to show you all of it. I'm so sorry. I'm such a chit
That's
chatter.
okay.
Don't worry. We're just going to buy it and we'll just listen to everything.
Yeah, because I'm literally going to set up an account after we get off this. I'm actually
Yeah.
starting to work with an older individual who's 22 this afternoon, and
Okay.
this is ideal. So I'm anxious to get into this. I think it meets a need for us and for the school divisions that we serve, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm anxious to kind of get it out in front of some of the special education directors and see what we can do with it.
That's awesome. And then again, we have more things coming. Like we have the Pat Jams, and then Mark, I am like patiently waiting. I think you said a year for this new part of the VB map, which I think is just going to take it to a different level. And I think it's just going to help our guys really explode with language. You know, it's really.
So for anybody out there listening, like, you know, Liz, where can they get these updates? Just like vbmap.com? Is there a Facebook, or, you know, EFL.com? Is there a Facebook page they can like follow? Like what?
Yeah, we do have a Facebook page that Steve set up. And as I'm saying it, I'm like, oh gosh, what is that? I assume it's EFL app and VB Map app. And then again, can always reach out to me, Liz at whatever product you're interested in. And then our website, eflapp.com, vbmapapp.com. And then of course, Mark and Pat both have their website, wealth of information, marksunberg.com, essentialforliving.com, ADB Press is another one. So Mark has those two websites. Lots and lots of great information. And just keep, I mean, I always, whenever I see that they're speaking, they definitely get my attention, and I'm like, wow, I gotta listen to hear what's new. You know, they're both doing some amazing things in the field, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, it was
really
my pleasure. So,
and you're welcome anytime. We jump on here every Tuesday and just usually ramble about certain things. So this had a lot more structure than our usual model.
I love it. I would just like to listen in, actually. But you know me, as you can tell, I'm a chit chatter.
Well,
so I'm trying to find.
We have a YouTube channel. You can go.
I saw
you can
that.
Go and, get our library, and we actually have been doing some parent webinars in Bulgaria as well. They're translated in Bulgarian. If you want to work on your Bulgarian at all.
Listen, I was gonna say maybe.
But I look forward to it. One of the great things about TED has been being introduced to so many amazing people in the field, and really appreciate you coming on.
Right back at you guys. I mean, TED he's like the Kevin Bacon of the field. You know, everything comes through TED. And Kate, could you do me a favor? Could you email me? Because I'm really lame at finding chat and Zoom. I don't know why, I can't figure it out. But Liz, and both of you, please email, because I'd like to give you a couple of licenses so you can
that'd be great.
Try it out. We also have the training as well. So if you'd like to
I actually need to finish. I need to finish because I purchased it in November. I need to finish my VB map training so I can get the CEU.
VB map training.
Oh yeah, the CEU, and then we have an EFL one too.
Cool.
Oh, excellent.
So
it's Liz at which one?
Whichever one you want.
Get
me both ways.
I'll even send it both.
And it's EFLapp.com, or as my mum likes to call it, EFLAP, and I get really annoyed with her. So it's not EFLAP, it's EFL app. So all right.
Thank you.
Stop talking.
Right. Thank you so much. It was so great to meet you, and look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Yeah. Bye.
Sounds great. Bye,
Take care.
guys. Thank you so much.